Okay, folks, I'm going to keep reading The Trauma of an American Education, which was published a couple of years ago now. And I ended with talking about a group of students that I was going to be working with at a high school, a public high school in North Carolina. I make an effort not to begin anything without pausing enough to get everyone quiet. And despite everyone telling me it was impossible to do so in a public school setting, I recited a poem or sang a song with students together each time before starting a class or journey. Some of them learned and memorized each word and inflection as it was fed to them. Memorization and recitation are lost arts. Aside from all the intellectual and academic attributes they inspire, such a practice clears the air and gets everyone in the same room at the same time in a matter of moments. "Welcome, everyone," I said very quietly to those listening, immediately catching the attention of some of the more attention-seeking drama queens who quieted rather than miss anything. And of course, being Southern stock youngins with home training, they shushed each other and looked up to meet my gaze. "What poem?" I asked, as they had by now memorized a decent number of poems and songs to choose from. Someone suggested we do the Jabberwocky, as I had recently let them know its author was a genius mathematician. We stood together in a small circle around the table and recited the piece in a lively enough manner to warrant the librarian's glare. Ah, well. "Okay," I said once everybody sat back down. "How much do you know about why you're here?" This is always the first thing to establish. Knowns and unknowns. Establishing common understanding is a step all too often forgotten in an attempt to achieve something haphazardly in a certain amount of time. It requires some time and effort, but without it there's no basic understanding from which to move as a group, and so it is doomed to be a sporadic effort led by the same people all the time. It's a common thread throughout learning in schools, all grades, ages, levels, studies. In a group, the same people do all the work every time. It's why serious learners and creators feel encumbered by group work. It isn't group work. It's the most responsible, creative, and organized people being made responsible for several other students on top of their own work. I'm sure this rings true for many folks out there. I was greeted with the usual range of responses. "She's sick of us," someone said, someone offered, overlapped by laughter and several other responses. "We're a pain in the butt. We're going to bake cookies? We're here to save humanity," and so on. "Okay," I summarized, no emotion, trying to maintain my focus on what was true. "Now, using what you know is true, what do you think? Your teacher isn't particularly prone to tossing you out because she's sick of you. You went from being bored in a trig class to a meeting with me as your mentor for gifted services in the library. Now, what could it be?" They had no clue. Seriously, not a one. At least no one was going to risk it. "Tell us," they cried out, not being students who have much experience and therefore no tolerance with not getting it immediately. This entire group of kiddos sought to grab onto information and hold it high above another, as though some sort of an award or validation, perhaps. It's who they believed they were. It's what was expected, what they did. It's why they were valuable to their family members and teachers. Clueless regarding intrinsic value, every raised hand was a claim not necessarily for fame, but it was a simple, now ingrained effort to further cement their value within their peers' eyes, as well as the system itself. "You tell me first." I sat down at the table with them. "You tell me first." I sat down at the table with them with a notebook and pen, and suggested they may want to take notes too. They immediately scrambled for their backpacks and rifled through to get what they needed. Some, of course, sought more exact instructions. "What should we put the notes in? Pen or pencil, miss?" And then the constant question I faced here: "Is this going to be graded?" I took a deep breath. "None of this is graded," I said. "I'm not here to grade. I'm here to learn as much as I can." I will admit that I was always more a philosophy teacher than anything else. You're all here because you understand what your class is studying, and your teacher said you were bored. I looked around to see the responses: quizzical, concerned, fearful even, some interest, a couple of lights. "So tell me, what exactly do you understand about what she's teaching right now?" Of course, one must always be prepared for the most literal of brilliant students. "We aren't there in her class right now," someone offered, only half in jest, "so we don't know what she's teaching." Thankfully, he was checked by his neighbor's disgusted moans, and I didn't need to respond. I'm not sure I would have anyway, as I prefer to focus on what is possible, rather than on what is pulling attention away from what is possible. My silence and open gaze, pen poised over my own journal, inspired them to continue in a more fruitful vein. All too often, teachers and parents move to fill the empty spaces of not knowing in an effort to comfort and control. We all know that when we fill an empty space, no one else can. I was primarily there for them, not me, and so any discomfort at silent, empty places was of no consequence. I wasn't there to fill them. In fact, I was there to create the spaces, allow them, and to teach the young people how to do the same thing, so that when they don't know something in life, rather than rushing to fill the void with ignorance and fancy, and then waste a lifetime of energy defending it all as precious, they'll have the ability to sit and wait and investigate and listen, and then, perhaps, better understand the actual information when it is revealed. Well, that's timely, huh, folks? Better understand what to do with it. Children need to learn how to milk those empty, quiet places, to see what is there before throwing something in just because it looks like it could fit, to sit with possibilities and watch for what they may become prior to investing themselves in a specific effort. To learn how not to know peacefully, and to know only that is the point from which we can learn. Given how lost they were at this point, I suggested they all write down everything they could in the next 3 minutes about what they were learning in the trig class as specifically as possible. Now, they could focus individually on what they knew and getting it down on paper as fast as possible. They knew this game better, though of course some sought further specifics and parameters. I refused with my silence, looked at the clock to let them know time had started. That got them, and within seconds everyone was scrambling to write down everything they knew about coordinate systems and trigonometry. Is it possible to turn one's worst learned behaviors in a way that they can be used to their own benefit? Yes, it is possible to turn one's worst learned behaviors in a way to use them to your own benefit. That's very true. Okay, I announced when I noticed the clock. Time's up. Who wants to read first? And make sure you take notes so everyone has the cumulative knowledge. In other words, everybody had to write down what everybody had to say. These being well-mannered youngins, hands were raised. Just go ahead and read when you're ready, I reminded them. Try to be aware enough of each other that you don't need permission to speak. They looked around at each other, afforded the usual herd glances and hints to each other. Pecking orders are not just for chickens or pigeons. Pecking orders. I'm sorry. I was continually amazed at how few skills teenage people had available in regard to presence, awareness, attention, integrity. Scary, really. But these are not valued by our society unless they make someone big money. And so why would we teach them to our children? Why would they even emulate them? Who could they emulate? One by one they read, some more general and pondering, some more specific, some with formulas. I simply kept reminding them to fill in whatever classmates were adding to their own lists so that everyone could get it all down. I urged questions or clarifications. The library where we were meeting wasn't actually called a library anymore, having been redesignated a media center, and now boasting rows of shiny new computers. They caught my eye as I listened to them read. Here was something I hadn't had as a tool or resource previously. Here was something these students were all too familiar with as they were growing up alongside the growing computer and internet era. When the last person finished, I suggested they go as a pack over to the computers and find a project on the internet that they could design and implement together. Something real, something that would use as much of what they had written down as possible in the real world outside. And then I went back to some other work. They were off and running. I'm going to end there today. Yeah, it's almost 12 minutes. We've been running around 12 minutes. Listen, if you guys watched this, I know some of you, I saw some people watched it. Leave me a message or something like this sucks, or fix your camera, or get an editor, or if you know an editor, that would be really great. Anyway, I'm sorry I missed last night. I've been sick again, so that's what happens. But I did read it. Now you have it. If I can, I'll read more before next Sunday. But happy Monday, and I hope you enjoy what I did read. There's actually a lot in there. I didn't realize. We got to rewrite that book. All right, cheers, guys. Bye-bye. Oh, subscribe to the channel because I'm not going to keep sending these out. Okay, cheers.